Hi, it's Dwyer. It's Monday, August the 21st, 2017. GamblersAdvisory.com, dwyersportsbetting.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Let's just go around the ring. Let's not focus on one fight and highlight it. Rather, let's talk about a few fights and a few possible developments in boxing. Now first, let me say this. I turned on my TV this Saturday. I was going to go to HBO or Showtime, and then it dawned on me that the Terrence Crawford and Dongo fight was on ESPN. So then I turned to ESPN, and not only did I get a great fight and a great production, right, but I got really a great set of announcers, right? Let's give Joe Tessitore a lot of credit. Let's give Andre Ward a lot of credit. Let's give Teddy Atlas a lot of credit for the Manny Pacquiao fight that was earlier on ESPN against Jeff Horn. Let's also give Timothy Bradley a lot of credit. I just like the idea, love the idea of having big-time matches like that one between two guys with shares of the belt at 140 on TV that's not pay-per-view and that's not a premium cable station. Right? This really is the way boxing should be. Terrence Crawford is a lot better being seen by more people than he would be hidden on some private cable station. Let's hope boxing keeps it this way. In fact, let's hope boxing has more fights on free TV. Right? ABC, NBC, CBS. Alright, let's shift gears. There's a lot of talk about a Lomachenko-Rigondeaux fight. Now, I'm pleased to report that apparently this fight is headed for ESPN. Right? So this is going to be a great fight. Understand that the lighter weights, they don't have typically the box office that heavyweights get. So rather than fight in obscurity, it's great to see Lomachenko and Rigondeaux actually allowing their fight to be shown in public so we could see their brilliance. But let me be clear, I've made a video on this before, just on YouTube here. Search for Dwyer, Lomachenko, Rigondeaux. You're going to see that I feel this fight's a mismatch. Right? I know Rigo is unbeaten. He's the smaller man here. He's the older man here. He's the guy with less volume. Right? I feel that Lomachenko is going to eat his lunch. I don't know how Rigo, with his punch count, feels he's going to be able to compete with the volume that Lomachenko throws at him. Also, the fact that he's smaller means to me that Lomachenko might be able to rough him up in the ring. I believe that Rigondeaux does better against lower volume opponents like Nonito Donaire. Right? Guys who are chess players, so it's a chess match in the pocket. I believe Lomachenko is going to be able to use too much of the ring. I don't think that Rigondeaux is going to be able to come forward like Orlando Salido did to make an issue of Lomachenko's defense of his body. Right? So I do view this as a mismatch. I think the reason Lomachenko is taking the fight, quite frankly, is Rigondeaux is an easier opponent than Jorge Linares, Mikey Garcia, or Terrence Crawford. Right? So why not pick the older guy who hasn't fought at your weight, who has the lower volume, than power punchers who could take you out, like Linares and Mikey Garcia, right? Or chess players who can actually switch southpaw, orthodox, come in and out, and who also have power in Terrence Crawford. So I like Lomachenko over Rigondeaux in that fight. I'm eagerly awaiting the line to come out, right? Let's also say this too. the fight's a referendum on Lomachenko, because I've been a little bit disappointed. I know when you look up his record, you're going to see a lot of stoppages. The problem, though, is when you dig under the hood, the stoppages really consist of people like Nicholas Walters on his stool saying, hey, you know what? I don't want to continue. Right? That's been happening far too often in Lomachenko fights. I'd like to see Lomachenko actually close the show, where the opponent doesn't have the opportunity to decide whether he wants to continue. Rather, the referee makes the decision by looking in the opponent's eyes and either counting him out or waving off the fight. Right? Those haven't been the kind of stoppages that Lomachenko has had. Finally, let me state the obvious. Lomachenko has a loss. Right? He has a loss. Now, what I've found is when a guy is trying to make a case for being one of the best in boxing and he has a loss, and then curiously you're hearing about him fighting fighters other than the guy who beat him, who's still alive, who's still boxing, Orlando Salido. Right? That should tell you that, in my opinion, Lomachenko himself realizes that Salido is still too dangerous. That Rigondeaux is the easier opponent than Orlando Salido. Right? Anyway, that's one man's thoughts. Let's talk about Dillian Whyte's comments on Deontay Wilder. Dillian Whyte sees himself as a body puncher. Right? Now, I'll concede Dillian Whyte is very savvy in the ring. Right? He's a fighter who, when I look at him, I think, wow, you know, this guy has some skills. Looking at his fight against Anthony Joshua, I actually believe Dillian Whyte when he claims that he was in the fight, then he hurt his shoulder. Right? After he hurt his shoulder, life wasn't the same. He was in with a young lion who's a tremendous puncher, and he just didn't have all the tools in his toolkit to defend himself. Right? Now, be that as it may, let's be real here. I'm all for Dillian Whyte calling out guys. Right? Especially when the guys he's calling out are champions. This is what contenders do. This is why we love contenders. Right? Because they want to be champion. Who else are you going to fight? Right? If I see 10 guys in a room and I'm a contender, forget the other 9. I want the champ. I want the belt. Right? Well, let me just say, there's too much risk involved for anyone fighting Dillian Whyte, isn't there? Deontay Wilder's actually trying to fight Luis Ortiz, a guy who's a mandatory for Anthony Joshua. In other words, the champs really are trying to fight each other. Trust me, Deontay Wilder would love to fight Anthony Joshua. Right? Deontay Wilder is looking for legacy. He's been champ for a few fights now. He has a better than 90% KO ratio. He's unbeaten. He's in his 30s now. Right? For him, he's in his prime. He wants the big fights. Now, if you have guys out there like Anthony Joshua, unbeaten heavyweight champion, like Joseph Parker, unbeaten heavyweight champion, right? Why would you fool around with Dillian Whyte? I just think the risk reward is not there as long as there are fighters out there like Luis Ortiz, who's someone's mandatory, Kubrat Pulev, who's someone's mandatory. Right? Then to me, a fighter looking for legacy is not going to pick the tough guy who isn't even someone's mandatory. Well, let me also say this too. I agree that if a guy can get inside on Deontay Wilder, just looking at his physique, right, tall, slender guy, and looking at the fact that he doesn't like you inside, and looking at the number of jabs to the body that Gerald Washington was able to land against him, I do believe that the way to beat Deontay Wilder is to make his body an issue. I agree with that 100%. But I also think that getting inside on Deontay Wilder can pose a bit of a challenge. Right? Deontay Wilder, after all, won the heavyweight title on his back foot against Bermane Stiverne. Right? He's tall, he has a jab, he has foot speed that's faster than some of the people at heavyweight, like Bermane Stiverne. Now, we just saw Dillian Whyte against Derek Chisora. Let's face it. You don't have to find Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora finds you. If you were in a crowd and you were to pick up Derek Chisora, to drive him someplace, you wouldn't have to hold a sign up that says Derek Chisora. He would come find you. Right? I believe the Derek Chisora-Dillian Whyte fight's a little bit of an illusion. Because Dillian Whyte didn't have to go find Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora is right there. He's front foot heavy. Right? He's a guy who's, there's no intrigue in a Derek Chisora fight where Derek Chisora is keeping you guessing on whether he's front foot or back foot. No, this guy is front foot. He's right in front of you. He's trying to overpower you. Now, that played into Dillian Whyte's strengths. Right? Dillian Whyte can set traps, goes to the body, can defend himself, and stuff like that. But what happens if Dillian Whyte is facing a taller guy who's hiding behind a jab, who has long distance power? In other words, Wilder doesn't have to get into your own area code to knock you out. Right? That right hand travels well. Right? Is everyone so sure that Dillian Whyte can find Deontay Wilder in the ring? That Dillian Whyte can get inside? Keep in mind, the guys who are masters at getting inside, Joe Frazier, Mike Tyson, those guys had a little bob and weave going, didn't they? Right? You saw Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier was bobbing and weaving. Right? You don't just walk inside. You got to bob and weave. Let me also say, too, if you're going to try to just walk inside, if you're going to try to walk down Deontay Wilder, good luck with that. Isn't there going to come a moment there where you're in the ring and you're thinking to yourself, you know what, this dude has power. I saw the Arthur Spielka highlights. I saw the Audley Harrison highlights. Maybe I need to have a better idea here than just try to walk straight in. Don't you have to have a little something to bob and weave your way in to get inside? Right? So, let's just say this. Dillian Whyte's certainly in the mix at heavyweight. He's certainly a worthy opponent. But for a heavyweight champion looking for legacy, he's too risky. Right? Quite frankly, Deontay Wilder is better off fighting Anthony Joshua, because win, lose, or draw, we'll remember the fight as a fight between two unbeaten heavyweight champions. Right? You lose to Anthony Joshua, people say, well, it was Anthony Joshua, unbeaten champion. You beat Anthony Joshua, you're on top of the mountain. What exactly do you get if you beat Dillian Whyte right now? Let's shift gears. There's a great storyline. It's a great storyline. I actually enjoyed the movie. There's a movie that involved Tony Bellew and Andre Ward. Right? It was one of these Rocky films. I think it was Creed. Now, Tony Bellew fought David Haye at heavyweight. Right? When Tony Bellew is not moonlighting as a heavyweight, he's actually a cruiserweight. Now, if you go through boxing, you're going to find that one of the biggest weight gaps in boxing divisions are the 25 pounds. I'm not kidding. 25 pounds between light heavyweight at 175 and cruiserweight at 200. That's why you don't have a lot of gifted light heavyweights talking a lot of smack about taking out cruisers at cruiserweight. Because this isn't, some guy at 154 saying, I want to take out the champ at 160. 6 pounds up. Right? This isn't a middleweight saying, hey, I want to take out the super middleweight. 8 pounds up. Here, you really have to get on the escalator, right? If you're a light heavyweight and you say, hey, I want to fight a cruiserweight, oh my goodness. That's a weight gain, isn't it? Well, let's just say Andre Ward and Tony Bellew, who shared the same movie stage, right, are now talking about possibly fighting each other. Right? Now, I think for boxing fans, this would be fascinating. Especially if one of these guys makes it a world tour. Right? Andre Ward goes to the UK to fight Tony Bellew. Then he could cross back across the Atlantic and go to Canada to fight Adonis Stevenson. Right? That would almost feel like an Ali type of thing, right? Like a Sugar Ray Robinson type of thing. By the way, it cost Ray Robinson. Let's remember, Randy Turpin beats him in the UK. Right? Well, all I'm saying, or Tony Bellew decides, you know what? Let me travel to the United States. You want me in Oakland? I'll fight you in Oakland. You want me in Vegas? I'll fight you in Vegas. While I'm in the United States, knowing that I have an inside game, why don't I stick around and try to fight Deontay Wilder? Right? You got a lot of world tour stuff going on. Right? Both of these guys are two of the better talkers in the sport. But here's the problem, and it is a big problem. You're Andre Ward, and you have another great champion at 175, Adonis Stevenson, who's been champ for years. Right? Now, the one thing we've learned from the Roy Jones, Antonio Tarver situation years ago is you start yo-yoing in weight. You say to yourself, okay, I'm just going to have one fight at cruiser. Right? And you gain the 25 pounds to fight at cruiser. If you're in your 30s or mid-30s like Andre Ward is, you might not be able to lose the 25 pounds that you gain. If you do lose the 25 pounds that you gain, and you hop in the ring against Adonis Stevenson, are you going to look sluggish like Roy Jones looked against Antonio Tarver? Right? Your body can only take so much. So let's say Andre decides, you know what? I'm going to gain the weight. I'm going to fight Tony Bellew. This is really for legacy reasons, because Tony was the champ at cruiser. My question is, does Andre try to stay at cruiser? Because of all the weight classes out there, in my opinion, cruiser is one of the deepest, most talented weight classes. Right? I'm still not convinced. I'm still not convinced that Briedis or Usyk can't hop in the ring at heavyweight and take out Joshua and Deontay Wilder. Right? I think cruiser is that deep. I'm looking at this WBSS series at cruiser. And you got a lot of talent in that series. Right? You got a lot of... Let me also say this too. You know, Briedis went up to heavyweight. I've mentioned this in other videos. He fought Manuel Charr. Folks, Google that. It's scary. Briedis is so much more athletic than Charr. That fight ends by stoppage. The lighter guy, the cruiser, knocks out the heavyweight. Charr, quite frankly, looked better against Vitaly Klitschko than he did Briedis. When you see a guy who can fight inside or outside, move as well and is as coordinated as Briedis, and you realize that he's hard to find in the ring because right now the heavyweight division is suffering from big man's disease. Right? You know, looks like you're playing basketball players. If you're fighting Joshua and Deontay Wilder, just understand things run in cycles. You have these big guys rule the roost for a while, then suddenly along comes a Joe Frazier, a Mike Tyson. Right? One of the biggest fights, in my opinion, in boxing over the next year is going to be the finals of the WBSS at Cruiser. I'm expecting it to be Usyk. Well, put it this way. I'm expecting Usyk to have to fight Briedis sooner or later. Now, when we talk about the best in the sport pound for pound, even we would agree that when the best in the sport pound for pound jumps too far out of their weight class, they could be in some trouble. So, Ray Robinson, right, for whom the phrase the best pound for pound was coined, goes up to light heavy and loses to Joey Maxim. Right? The jump at the time between middleweight 160 and light heavy was 15 pounds. If Andre Ward tries to jump 25 pounds to fight Tony Bellew, and if he can no longer then lose the weight to get back down to 175, or if his body tells him, look, don't treat us like Roy Jones treated his body after winning the heavyweight title. Right? If he decides to stick around 200, even though Andre Ward is one of the very best in the sport pound for pound, if not the best. I understand the Crawford people have a big argument. I'll let the fight fans argue that out. Let's just say Andre Ward's on the very short list of being the very best in boxing. But would going to Cruiser be too much? Let's also revisit Ward Bellew. Now Andre gets inside on Kovalev. Kovalev was uncomfortable with Andre inside on him. Now, are we certain that Tony Bellew, who destroyed Nathan Cleverly, who, by the way, currently holds a share of the belt at 175, are we certain that the Tony Bellew who destroys Cleverly in the rematch from the inside is going to panic in any way, shape, or form by Andre Ward trying to get inside on him? Is it possible that Bellew might actually want Andre Ward, the smaller man, inside on him? Right? Let's pay close attention to this Ward Bellew narrative. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not. Right? But if it is real, Ward Bellew is intriguing from a style perspective. Understand, Tony Bellew has been in the ring with heavy-hitting heavyweights like David Haye. Right? I don't think Tony is going to be intimidated by Ward's power. Right? So, Ward Bellew, fascinating fight. Because both guys are talkers, I actually think that that's a fight that would be easy to sell by a promoter, especially if the guys are creative in the location of the fight, right? UK, for example. If Ward were to fight Tony Bellew, does he try to stick around in a division 25 pounds more than where he is right now and add on another 7 from where he made his name at super middle? Let me also say this too. Since I believe personally that Briedis beats Anthony Joshua, I know y'all think I'm crazy. Okay, great. Sounds good to me. Right? Since I feel that Briedis beats Joshua and beats Wilder, if I'm Andre Ward, given the risk involved, let's just talk legacy. What's better for Andre's legacy? And keep in mind, this is a guy who has not lost since he was a young teenager. right? Why wouldn't Andre Ward, who's bigger than you think, right? He's bigger than you think. You saw him standing next to 5'8" Terence Crawford on the recent ESPN video. Look at how much bigger he is than Terence Crawford. If I'm Andre Ward, why not shoot for the moon here? Why not think about taking on Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua? We just saw Joshua at a sold-out venue, 90-odd thousand people, against Vladimir Klitschko. Right now, Joshua is viewed as the big bad wolf, isn't he? 100%, not even 99, 100% KO ratio. Right? Would Joshua know what to do with Ward's foot speed? Would Joshua know what to do if Ward got inside on him? Right? Think it through. Anyway, let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Talk about whatever you like. Loma against Rigondeaux, Whyte against Wilder, Ward against Bellew, Ward against Usyk or Briedis, Ward against Joshua or Wilder. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for stopping by.